Elsa not here?
You should be. We wait for her, or get rolling, what do you think?
Hey, sure, she
Oh.
It's a tight week.
Yes. Alright,
Thank you for waiting.
yes ma'am. Alright, 1:01 PM, January 29th, Wednesday, hump day. Let's begin this work session for Lake County Board of County Commissioners.
Start with a quick calendar and agenda review for next week. Alright, on Monday the 3rd, the only thing we've got going on so far is the Housing Coalition monthly meeting. Is this something that we should, is it Cipriano that does these? Should put this on their calendars as well, just for information?
Yeah, so in the past we did, so for some of the BAG, Build a Generation Coalitions, Food Access, Childcare and Housing Coalition, we did put those on the public calendar, cause sometimes commissioners join, county staff regularly attend them, it's kind of another way to advertise that folks can go to them. But up to you guys on how you feel, if you wanna keep them on there.
Yeah, throw them on there, or keep them on there, better to have them and, than not, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Gives us the option.
What does that group do specifically?
So Build a Generation, the Housing Coalition, has two parts, so they have what's called the PAT, the Policy Advisory Team, and those are kind of more nuanced or experts in housing, so from the construction side, like North Craft Dan sits on it, there's other folks that join from like a policy perspective, or maybe even like code change, think through code change. The city, I think, used some of the PAT recommendations to update their city code, and I think that was around short-term rentals and some other things, maybe like being able to build an ADU on your city property. Otherwise, the coalition itself, they meet, talk about housing strategies for the community. It's a way for folks to network, talk about housing issues in the community, what we're seeing, whether if it's a need for like transitional housing, and how to provide folks with that. So if you're involved in a domestic violence situation, like can we, providing someone or that group the knowledge of resources of where someone can go and get like a hotel room paid for them, so they can kind of transition and figure out what they're going through. So it's made up of community members, county staff go pertinent to housing, so Jackie regularly attends and sometimes goes. I've gone in the past, commissioners have gone in the past. I think now like a representative from the Mount Massive Manor homes, someone from their board goes. It's just kind of a place to talk about strategies for housing. And then the Food Access Coalition, similar, but they talk about food access in Leadville and Lake County. So for areas, for folks to get healthy and nutritious food, how to help, if there are SNAP shortcomings for folks, how to help people through that application process. So a lot of human services staff goes to those meetings. The Child Care Coalition is another youth coalition, I can't remember, but that one kind of expanded because the county and then some other funders created funding for folks, to help pay for folks to get their childcare license. So there can be more licensed childcare providers in this community. I don't know if I did
So the
just-
childcare, food and housing all get together at this, or are those three separate entities
They're
that meet
separate.
different times?
Three separate,
Okay.
yeah,
They're all housed under BAG,
yeah,
like they facilitate those coalition meetings and get the right people to the table, but
But I
they're
can
all
reach out,
different.
yeah, I can reach out to those guys and just have them add them to your calendars too, then just for awareness.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, and it's a valuable community asset to be able to see all those things happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on to Tuesday the fourth. Our first official regular meeting at 11 a.m.
Second.
Well, second, first official regular meeting.
Oh, I see.
Your other one was a special.
Oh, okay.
You're so special.
Same.
Oh, okay.
Same but different. Different but same. That is at 11, there is the Colorado Energy Office, county listening session from 1 to 2. Child Care Coalition monthly meeting is at 5:30. And regular city council meeting at 6. Community planning and development is also doing their one community project conversation at Mountain View Village at noon. And then they will have their Spanish language community kickoff at Full Circle at 6. That'll look good.
Yep.
And Wednesday the 5th, there's community coffee at 8:30. And CPD, one community project at Twin Lakes Community Kickoff at South Fire Station at 5:30.
Do we need to put on there that at 10 a.m. we are meeting with the immigration lawyer?
Are all of you doing that?
I think so,
Is
yeah.
that- Yes, okay.
Yeah,
so we'll, Chris, if you could provide Sandra with just the language for that work session,
Will do.
thank you. Then we'll get that on the calendar for next week.
okay.
And that's on the 5th?
Yeah.
Alright, and Thursday the 6th. CPD has one community project, Leadville Community Kickoff at Freight.
And we, this,
Good luck.
we also have, the mayor invited you to a meet and greet at Treeline. I will send you that information.
Okay, thank you. I think I
so
saw
I think
that on
that's-
Warren's calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a conflict of time, isn't
everything is.
it?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, but I think so with the one community projects, you know, it would be great and important for you guys to go to them, but they're gonna be similar formats.
So one of the, what is it, 3?
Yeah, so one of them would be great, all of them would be phenomenal, but you know, you can't be everywhere at once. Yeah.
Yeah, I've already replied to that and accepted the invitation, so
Okay,
I will not be attending the cocktail hour with the
Right.
city.
Yeah, same.
Alright,
I'll go to the city thing.
and that one starts at 5:30, so you could come, shake hands, and walk up to Freight. Up to
right.
That's at 5. Oh,
And we'll
wait.
get those on the, on your guys'
Okay, yeah, I don't.
Outlook calendars in this calendar.
Yeah. Alright, then Friday the 7th, Twin Lakes Community Coffee is at 9 a.m. and E911 Authority Board has their regular meeting from 10 to noon.
Nice.
Is that something we should go to? Authority regular meeting?
It'd probably be good to go and see, you know,
Board.
see the board, see what they do, how they operate, see them in action,
Mm-hmm.
you know, throw them off their game.
Yeah,
Just start asking questions and
Yeah.
make their meeting run an hour longer.
Yes.
Okay, I think, there's one thing we've gotten really good at so far.
Okay. Let's take a look at the agenda for next Tuesday.
Oh, that's under regular meetings and teams, correct?
Yes.
And we will update the agenda kind of based off of the appointments that you all did from that, even though, you haven't maybe gone to any of those meetings, but just as a placeholder, a reminder for you guys to give the community information updates and then updates to the board as well.
Okay.
Is there a refresh button on Teams? Do I close back up and go back again, or,
Yeah,
cause I don't see the 25th on regular meeting.
regular meetings. Oh, you're looking for the 4th, 2/4.
Yeah.
Oh jeez, what month is?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's hard to believe it's almost February. Okay, first item will be discussion and consideration of an IGA between the Lake County Sheriff's Office and the Chaffey County Sheriff's Office to set parameters for detention training, led by Heath Beckman, Sheriff. Second item will be discussion and consideration of a PSA with Jeremiah Fernandez Johnson Consulting for Lake County Commissioner Team Building and Strategic Planning Retreat, led by Mr. Bergman.
This is our facilitator for the retreat.
Number 3, discussion and consideration of a PSA with Gillian's Land Consultants to complete plat reviews for Lake County Community Planning and Development, led by Ian Schneider. Number 4, discussion and consideration of a PSA with MGT of America Consulting for yearly 2 CFR Part 200 cost allocation plan, led by Candace. Number 5, discussion and consideration of the adoption of resolution 2025-06, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Lake supporting the route policy research housing needs assessment, led by Jackie Wheelahan, our housing program manager. She has a few items. Number 6, discussion and consideration of deed restrictions to be applied to the housing at 10,200 feet project. She will also do number 7, discussion and consideration of amended housing lottery guidelines. And discussion and consideration of a contract with Oakwood Homes.
And all of these we'll talk about tomorrow
okay,
for housing.
Good.
and we will talk about the finance piece too, the MTG of America Consulting.
Yeah, Candace can go over that
Okay.
here next, and what a cost allocation plan is.
And then calendar and agenda review. Your consent agenda, the payroll from January 24th, accounts payable packets from January 13th to the 19th, and January 20th to January 26th. We should have the January Veteran Service Officer report ready for January. And then these are the minutes that should be ready for review that still need approval. I did notice that Tracy had sent some of these in an email, and I don't know if she copied you guys or not.
She did,
Did
or
she?
Cindy did.
Okay, I was gonna say maybe Cindy did, okay. I'll just double check and make sure you guys have all of these to review. And that will be it,
Thank you.
yeah.
Sweet.
And if you have any questions on any of the regular agenda items, we can talk about them now. Or if you
Yep,
can email me questions,
You
what,
got it.
all of that.
Am I sharing this screen?
Go to the Zoom and then hit share at the bottom there,
Sorry, I'm new to Zoom.
and then that one there. I still
The
struggle
state
with that.
uses Google, just a little bit.
When I try and look at like a PSA from Jeremiah Johnson Consulting, it just says the folder is empty.
It's not in the packet yet.
Oh, I see.
Yep, that stuff will get added here in the next couple of days.
Okay.
Usually we do agenda review for the next week on Tuesday at the regular meeting or work session.
Okay.
But since these have all kind of been weird training sessions, we did them a day late. So, the email will go out today with the draft agenda and get everybody's memos and, packet material in the next couple of days, so
Okay.
just check back and that stuff should be in there
Okay.
for you guys to take a look at.
Great, thank
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
You're welcome.
So
See ya.
finance, just before, no, you're fine, Sandra.
Okay.
Before I start the finance training, if you asked what a cost allocation plan is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just tell you now, cause it's not actually in this training. So we are required, by the state to provide a cost allocation plan, and it is, essentially a plan that MGT puts together for us. They'll request data from the finance team, and they are analyzing, the cost of, providing services for DHS. And the state actually gives us a reimbursement amount for not direct cost, but indirect cost for providing DHS services. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you were right,
I just
sorry.
found it the other day and was
Yes,
like, this seems
you were.
like we do this. So I'm wrong, stop me. So essentially MGT created one for us last year and we have to provide one every year.
Got it.
So they provide that document so we can get money back for things we already provide.
Yes. That was part of our transition, so the guy who had done them forever, let's get pattern with this, we were like, okay, we need to find a new vendor to do this. Turns out he was also retiring, which was kind of nice. But with the new firm, MGT Consulting, who does this, we've actually been able to like increase our reimbursement, do that. So, you know, it's very good every couple of years to evaluate your vendors and who we're doing business with and then decide if we should change, yes,
Every year,
yes, also that.
yeah.
Yeah, the consultant thing is a sticky point in the community. Like, why are we hiring so many consultants? So I'm gonna ask a lot of questions so that when people ask me, it makes perfect sense, but when you just read it in the papers and be like, oh, you had to hire another consultant?
Yeah.
There's not enough guys on the team?
I believe they do, I was kind of looking over the agreement that you guys are gonna look at. They do the majority of the counties in Colorado's
Okay.
cost allocation plans.
Yeah.
They like list all the counties they cover. And we, I think, got just a little over, I'm doing this by memory, 360,000? It's either 260 or 360 from the state for the indirect cost of us having DHS. So this is like for finance to help, you know, with their invoicing and, you know, any other services like that that we provide to them. This shows, hey, this is the indirect cost of them having DHS, and so the state refunds us
Reimburse
based
us.
on whatever's in that report.
Nice. So it's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're
Yes.
spending a little bit of money to get significantly more money to have DHS.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, so a lot of this may be things we've heard before, cause some of it is, you know, kind of new, and some of it's directed by policy. I tried to keep it direct, but I also wanted to give my staff an opportunity to share things they wanted you to know about their job, so they have a lot of benefit to this. So we're gonna talk about accounts payable, the procurement policy. Mainly I'm addressing the policy because we don't have a procurement department and the policy's pretty new, so We're kind of working through some of the pieces of it and how to best handle them, and I know you went over contracts with Chris, and then we're talking about the P cards, so some of this will be a little bit of review. So. Is this what? Hit that, okay, great. So accounts payable, AP, they follow a weekly schedule, so this is happening every week. So AP follows a structured weekly schedule to manage tasks like finalizing and reviewing packets. So every time a group of invoices is processed and approved for payment, it creates a packet of invoices, and those are actually items that you guys will approve in your consent agenda on the first and third Tuesday of the month. So when you hear the word packet, it's just a grouping of invoices. There might be like a finance packet or a E911 packet, depending on who's processing the invoices, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So the weekly schedule, AP is entering invoices. They're using an automation payment process that we'll talk about a little bit more, and then getting checks signed, which that hinges on one of you guys being available on Thursdays at 1. We would appreciate not having to go on a manhunt to get things signed. Invoice processing, invoices are received via email to the accounts payable inbox, and I'll show you that email in just a second, and also to our PO box, and they are processed by 5 p.m. each Friday with check for essential details like labels, dates, and approved signatures, so we're back checking all of our AP invoices. The AP packets, there are a couple of departments who process their own packets, but those get graded and zipped and sent to the payable email. And those invoices and payable registers get checked, and they have to be received by 5 p.m. on Friday. So AP reviews each packet using a checklist, and when I say AP reviews, we don't have the person, give me 1 second, processing the invoices, checking the invoices. Someone else on the accounting team is checking the packet that has been processed. So what we don't want in accounting, and that's just separation of duties, is that the person doing any work is ever back checking themselves, so they can't, write a fat check to themselves, process it, you guys sign it, you don't catch it. So we try to make sure whoever's reviewing that packet before it gets processed is not that person, and also they're never the signer. Did you have a question?
I have a mental bookmark
your little-
about like three subjects back.
It's okay.
Coming in Thursday, 1 o'clock, where you want me to be and how
could just
long
be
are you gonna need me?
At your
for?
office, and it kind of depends how many checks have to be sent. We're gonna
Okay.
talk about how checks are sent out and processed
Yeah.
in just a minute. We really try to get people to sign up for ACH, but it does take some action on their part, and sometimes we cannot forcibly
Yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be checks
people-
signed, that's fine, we
Well,
don't
we would
have to
love
get,
it, we can't forcibly make people choose the option for ACH payment.
but in the interest of keeping the county running efficiently, I wanna be where, I
Yeah.
don't want manhunts, so where,
I'll let you speak to it, signer. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a lengthy process, but
half hour at 1 o'clock Thursday,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you can't be there, let me know and I can be there and.
Yep.
okay,
And me too.
sweet.
Yep.
What happens if it's a check for me, do I sign my own check or do I need one of these guys to do
probably
that?
not you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
somebody
don't do
else to
that.
Okay,
Select
so,
ACH.
Right. And we'll,
oh, and you are also in that list of, okay.
yeah,
So, okay, we'll say if you happen to be there for a special thing with when it says more than 8 inches.
yes. And I just wanna touch on this pride of, goal completion, so when I started, accounts payable was behind by, I don't know, didn't matter, 12 months, 16 months, 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
It was
So bad.
ridiculous, it was very bad. Worked very hard with the team, we now have a 2-week turnaround time for accounts payable. I would say for like 90% of invoices.
Okay.
But yeah, when I started, so whether it was Acorn Petroleum, Feral Gas, Excel, right? Just,
Hadn't been paid in over a year?
oh yeah.
Wow,
Mm-hmm,
that's unbelievable.
yeah.
Good job, Tim.
Well, it was, thank you. It was a team effort.
Yeah.
And the team has really knocked it out of the park, and we've established these procedures, and so we'll keep knocking it out of the park.
Reviews and correction, and I'll kind of go through the review process. Each packet has a checklist that we use. Finance will correct really simple errors, or contact a department if it's a larger error that we're like, wow, this is coded just completely the wrong place. We'll have a conversation, but small things, and we'll go over what that might entail, we will fix just to keep things moving along. Payment processing, I'll talk a little bit about this more. AP, our accounts payable, uses Tyler, our accounting software program. But Tyler is not a payment processor, it's just the recording arm. Tyler sends the payments to a company called Corpay, and they handle for the most part paper checks, virtual, unless it's like an emergency check that we have to print, like a payment's needed tomorrow. Virtual cards, which we really try to teach people not to select the virtual card. They have these virtual credit cards, they take a cut of the pay, and people don't realize that they're digital, so we really beg people to please not use them for our sanity and theirs, but sometimes it happens. And then ACH payments, which is our preferred method of payment. So we really encourage people to use ACH because it's a quicker, we can see that the check has been received, it's been cashed a lot more quickly, and for us, we have to kind of go track down checks that don't get the stale date. And
That's just direct deposit.
Yeah.
ACH.
What does that stand for?
I don't know,
Automated check handling.
automated check
Okay.
handling, maybe.
Yes.
Sorry.
So that's just where it goes directly from payer to your bank account.
Right.
We do at least try to do that, cause tracking down stale dated checks is a real challenge. That means a check is expired, and we do set them to expire, I think it's 60 days. So then we have to go cancel out the payment and reissue the payment if the payment still needs to go out. And sometimes those just get returned to our bank account, and when we don't know the check is still dated fast enough and it hits the treasurer's office, sometimes those get recorded as sorry, it's distracted.
Yeah.
Sometimes those get recorded as revenues, which they're not. So it is really better for us to have ACH payments, and we will walk people through setting that. Nikki, our amazing accounts payable processor, works very hard and wanted you guys to know that she has a schedule that she follows every week. So she's included this information in the next shot of kind of her schedule. On Monday, she's finalizing the prior week's AP packet, and we begin the first level of review. So our review process is several back and forth between the reviewer and Nikki if we identify an issue, sometimes we have to go track it down. So when people don't respond to our emails, and we need to know where things go or don't have the appropriate level of approvals, if they don't respond until they're angry that an invoice isn't paid, it's very difficult for us. We're not mind readers, and we need to know what you budgeted for your expense. Tuesday, reviews continue. We enter invoice, check emails in the mail, like the mailbox. If reviews are completed, we process and perform the AP automation and the checks for the prior week's packet. Wednesday is the deadline to process the prior week's packet if it hasn't been finished on Tuesday. Sometimes it's pushed to Wednesday because we're just trying to get information from people. We continue entering invoice, checking emails and mail because we're already kind of starting to get ourselves in order for the next week. Thursday, we're continuing to process, and this is when we'll need you guys to sign any checks, and we'll need the clerk to sign those checks by 1 p.m.
And if the clerk's not available, is Patrick or?
Patrick can
Yeah.
sign those checks, so supposed to be.
What happens this week with like people's paychecks and stuff?
Cindy will be back tomorrow at
Yeah.
3
Hmm.
to sign. She made that effort for us.
Well, it's something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sharp
Yeah.
stick in the eye, I
Two
guess.
commissioners can't sign it?
I imagine that you could, Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I think that is allowed because it's who is an authorized signer on the accounts, and all three commissioners are authorized signers.
Sweet.
We can do that, if it needs to happen at 1, if that helps you. Instead of 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last piece is
Just
that
let us know.
on Friday, we're continuing to enter invoices, so we're essentially finishing one packet and starting work on the next one. So we can kind of keep things moving along. The biggest reason for the 2-week processing period for invoices is A, we receive a lot of invoices, but B, a lot of times your invoice has been processed and the check's been sent, but it takes a moment for checks to arrive if you choose not to sign up for ACH. So a vendor may have to wait because of the processing delay with Corpay, getting that check issued and out
Mhm.
in the mail. So we are working very hard, and this is Nikki's schedule. She's very, very organized and incredible, and she works very hard. So this is what her week looks like.
And that's every week, not just the payroll weeks.
That's every week.
Okay.
AP and payroll are not the same person.
Yeah.
So AP invoice processing, I've got the accounts payable email up there for you and the PO box. These are processed weekly based on what we receive by 5 p.m. So if you're, not you, if people aren't organized and getting invoices to us in a timely fashion, we process just on as the invoices are coming in. So sending it at 6 p.m. on Friday and then wondering why no one hung around after hours to receive and process your invoice is a little ridiculous. So we do set those timelines because it's wrong to expect people to work around the clock.
Yeah.
Invoices received are checked for the Lake County government label. I'll show this to you in a moment. The date of the invoice or service, the account code for the fund/department it goes to, especially budgeted items have to go into their correct area. Tax exempt status, we don't pay tax. And I'll show you a little bit more about our tax exempt status. And then amounts, approved signatures, emails are okay, but we require different levels of signatures depending, and this is in our procurement policy as well. We require different levels of approvals depending on the amount of the expense, budgeted or not. Invoices that appear to be for equipment are cross-checked to make sure we're recording assets. Something that we heard earlier today, we have not necessarily caught at the invoice level, but we're trying to catch it then so it gets into the system and we're not surprised by a new item we didn't know was purchased. If vendors knew, we asked for a W-9. And then here's an example of kind of the process that Nikki is using to review invoices and get appropriate levels. So every invoice she reads, she's making sure are all of the things that we require here. So this is a processed invoice. It's gotta be coded, we need the correct signature depending on the level of approval. And then you can kind of see her levels of approval here. I do really want to hit on this. We've created policies and finance's job is to uphold those policies. We do have a lot of issues with invoices being submitted to us, especially when we're talking about elected officials. They don't answer to Tim, they're elected. So it does, we do come across a lot of pushback, and I would lean on you guys to give us some direction because they don't answer to me. I just can say, no, I won't pay this till you follow the appropriate process, but at some point then we're just not paying invoices to people who we owe money. So we've
There's-
never had really great policies before, so this is new. but it's been really challenging, and I really try to address it as respectfully as I can, highlighting the policy, you know, but at some point, I'm really not sure when they don't answer to us, what the,
Yeah.
Is there a specific
Access,
department or elected official that this comes up with, or was it everyone?
It started, yes, it started as everyone, right? Cause as we implemented these policies, it was a change, the education opportunity of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Also the purview of the board to
Yeah.
adopt the policies and manage the finances of the county. So we've worked through it with all of the other elected officials, except for the one who's out of town right now.
Okay.
But even, you know, you see a number 5 there and it's kinda hard, right, like where you start to seeing like 3Y and 4Y, like I am not, when it says that it needs county manager approval is because it is such a large expense. Even if it is a budgeted expense and we have a PSA or a contract with that vendor, so like for Marson Engineering for the earthwork and remediation on West Third and West Sixth, those housing sites. Those are huge invoices, right? $150,000, like big invoices, right? Those come to me for the final approval. We have the contract, we have the grant funding, we have the money for it. We're doing this, and then I put my name on it saying that it is approved. So even for, you know, sheriff's office, even for the 911 authority, when they make large purchases, since part of the IGA is that they follow the county's financial policies, it still gets routed through me. So there's that check, right? And eyes on it for such a huge invoice of that it's why, you know, why we are paying it and it is approved. Well aware that elected officials do not report to me. However, I report to the Board of County Commissioners, and the finance team reports to me. And we have created these policies for best practices and governance of the people's money. So when there are those large invoices, policy is it is my approval, right? Part of that too is you will see, when we get into like the grants policy, like no one, not even any other elected officials, can go out and apply for and receive money for Lake County government without the Board of County Commissioners' approval. That is your power to take on that money, to take on that debt, to do all of that. So yes, even if there is a grant for election security and all of that, some might view it as rubber stamping, but to be public and transparent and open and honest, it needs to come before the board for your approval. And also, as we walked through the grant policy, right, of you getting it to you guys and like going through all those steps and you're being like, I don't know, like long range, this doesn't make any sense. I don't think we should do that. That's the opportunity for the board to weigh in. So anyway, it's not a control thing. I wanna make that very clear and have that on the record. Like it's not a control or an ego thing for me or for Candace or for Nikki.
it's not
But it
fun
is-
to send that many emails.
Right, but it is, you know, it is just the best practice, and especially when we're talking about big multiple commas in an invoice.
Candace, are there any current outstanding invoices that have not been paid because they're not following the procedure at the moment?
We have one, and the biggest issue with it is, I mean, it is a little large, but we don't have the grant documentation for it. And as we are all about to probably learn all together, is grant funding is being tracked more closely and not being able to account for it isn't okay anymore. And I spent the good part of 2 hours yesterday tracking down $120,000 of grant revenue that was received that got parked in fuel taxes. Had to go figure out, okay,
Parked where?
in fuel taxes, but it was actually grant revenues for reimbursements that were submitted. Had to go say, okay, how many reimbursements have we submitted? When would we have received the reimbursement? What's the amount? And then dig through a year's worth of trying to figure out when it hit the bank account. And I mean, the treasurer's office is recording that receipt, but it was ACH and it just says CDOT, they don't know.
This is my personal hell.
You know, we aren't trying to make it harder for people.
Yeah.
It is just.
Yeah.
I mean, we wrote off a huge amount of receivables, part of why we got dinged in the 23 audit that we probably received.
Yeah.
We just don't know it because no one's saying, hey, that's specifically what it's for,
Yeah.
and none of us are mind readers, so we have to have a way to account for things and track them.
You've got a lot of moving pieces you're trying to put in order right now.
Yes,
And like, I am
Doing my
eternally
best.
grateful that you're doing this. Every time you come up with a major issue like this, like grant money going into fuel tax account, do you feel confident that we can eliminate that moving forward?
I think we're not gonna be perfect, you know, but when people are like, no, pay this invoice, I don't answer to you, they don't wanna get the grant approved, and we don't know that those revenues have been received when they do get received, it leaves the county fronting a lot of money that we don't even know if we're actually receiving.
Right.
How big is this current outstanding invoice from the clerk's office?
It's around 16K, and we just wanna have the grant codes for it.
Totally, yep, good to know.
And I do intend to work with each department to help them understand the why
Mhm.
and walk them through, okay, what grants do you have? I'm gonna spend the next month trying to track down any other receivables like that, but we have over 100 grants. We have around 18 federal grants that we know of.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a huge amount of tracking down any and everything that didn't get reported correctly, and we
Mhm.
think we're catching them before they arrive more and more often. But when you don't know a grant's been applied for and received, and we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's part of our audit, even if another department did it, like that's sort of the issue. It's not a control thing, it's like we wanna be open and honest, we wanna make sure we're actually collecting money, we ask for reimbursement for it,
Mm-hmm.
and we do that by keeping good records.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going.
Good job.
We're not gonna solve everything today.
Oh girl, you're doing great.
You've identified an issue.
AP packets. So we create packets for finance, so finance includes a lot of departments, some departments are not, processing their own invoices, we do it for them. Some people process their own invoices and deliver the packet to us, they're all still reviewed. So E911, Goal, Public Health, Public Works, Sheriff's Office, Library, and Tourism, they all do their own packet and send us the packet, so when you're reviewing, you'll see the packet. And when you click into a packet, you'll see the actual invoices all as one PDF. You'll see the payable register, which is actually what gets processed through Tyler. So that you can open those and look at them at any point, when you're reviewing if you'd like to. But we do ask for these packets to be zipped and sent to us by 5 PM on Friday, so we can do the work of reviewing them all.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see there's quite a few packets, and each one of these is any number of invoices.
Mm-hmm.
So when we review, we print out a payable register, so if we're sending out a payment, this is actually the information, around that payment. What we wanna do is the back checkers checking anything highlighted in green here. And this report comes right out of Tyler. So whatever's been entered about the invoice, we're back checking it here. If we notice that there is a payment, so we're looking at the invoice, we're looking at this register. If we're noticing that an invoice has been coded to the wrong area, this is a great place to eradicate the miscellaneous and other that we have discovered, and to get things into the correct department. It's also a good time to kind of, we'll fix little things, like if you see the invoice number's been entered incorrectly, we'll fix it. If the amount has a typo, this is where that gets back checked. And then if the GL code seems wrong and we can tell where it should go and it's where it goes often, we'll correct that. If it's not, we'll reach out to the department and say, hey, we saw this was parked here, is this really where you want it? Is it where it was budgeted for? This is also a great place to like back check if something wasn't budgeted for and it's significant, like where did this come from and how do we account for it? So AP gives us a chance to back check things before they're out the door in a way that the P card, we're gonna pay for it once.
Right.
Once we've purchased it, so we wanna catch things here and fix them if there's an error. And so that's what we do when we review. And then we have a review checklist. Our AP person, as they're going, they're saying, hey, I did my piece, like, combining all the files in one register. And then you can see that the accountant, they're making sure all the W-9s exist. We've got our deputy finance director, does the vendor audit report. Then we kind of go over the approvals to make sure everything's been fully back checked. And then the completed AP packet is checked off, so the whole list is done. Which seems like an incredible amount of back checking, but for the time being, I think it's not inappropriate.
It's fabulous.
So our Tyler ERP Pro is our accounting software. It sends that AP automation payment to Corpay when people, have elected for the different methods of payments. This processes paper checks, virtual cards, and ACH payments. And this is where that delay can happen, is Corpay prints and mails out checks via USPS. Vendors can expect to receive their check within 10 to 14 days. We really try to get people to set up for ACH, so they're not waiting on paper checks. If they have done that, they'll receive it in 3 to 5 days. And to sign up for ACH, vendors have to meet Corpay's requirements. This means they had to have received at least one check payment. And I think this is how Corpay just back checks their account information before they can sign up, and that is not our rule. That is a Corpay rule. They require one actual check mailed out, and then if it's within 90 days, they can sign up for ACH, and Nikki has directions and walks them through how to sign up for it. So AP packets view. A BOCC member needs to be available at their office to sign AP checks, and you'll get payroll checks at 1 p.m. AP packets are reviewed by the BOCC during the consent agenda on the first and third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. Our finance team would like you to know that we spend a great deal of time reaching out repetitively to directors, elected officials, to make sure our coding's right, to make sure we've got the correct approvals. We reject and question expenditures that don't align with the procurement, fiscal, and purchasing card policies. And usually, people correct it right away. It's usually they made an error and just didn't catch something. But on occasion, we have some back and forth. We hope that you'll continually support us in improving, because we recognize these are new, we might find things we need to work through, and enforcing the financial, procurement, and purchasing card policies. Tax exempt status, if you need it, people reach out and we get them our tax exempt number. We're a government entity, so we don't pay sales tax and use taxes. And we check all of our invoices and to make sure that no people aren't paying tax. All personnel with purchasing authority are supposed to be made aware by their department head that we don't get billed for sales tax, and make sure that those are removed from invoices. And you can get a copy of our tax exempt certificate if you reach out to myself or AP. Inbox, we'll send you a copy of this if you need it.
Would that include hotels and gas and?
Depends how they are paid for. Hotels are a big one for us in terms of we don't have a procurement department, so everybody is responsible, to get their own hotel. I have been really trying to, when people reach out, requires a lot of extra work. If it's like for a conference, I'll reach out to the conference site and say, hey, do you offer a discount for staying where the conference is? And the answer is almost always yes. If they have booked it far enough in advance, we get a discount. We don't pay sales tax. if it's on a P card, they're supposed to make sure it's sales tax exempt, but that's where P cards get hard, I'm not there with them to like forcibly make it happen, and I can't claw that back from the people we spend that money with. It's why P cards, we try to really rein those in, cause you have less like ability to stop things before they occur if they're outside of our policy. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
So procurement, our procurement policy is very brand new. I think there are some great pieces to it, there's some pieces to it, that I think without a procurement team get really challenging, and so it may be worth, we get to review them and revise them every year, having a discussion about, does this make sense if X, Y, and Z don't exist? So procurement and contracts policy, I'm not gonna go over contracts, I feel like you guys had that from someone who's way more qualified at that than I am. It sets forth guidelines, authorization levels, and procedures for the county's purchase of goods and services. It's meant to maximize our purchasing power, not necessarily control people's choices, but we're a government entity, we can get much better rates if we're buying large quantities of items, we can get better pricing. This helps ensure organizational effectiveness, efficiency, accountability, and equitable treatment of all employees and elected officials, so we're all kind of held to the same standard for purchasing. One thing I would like to see us create this year is an Amazon policy. We have a county Amazon. And we would like to ask for people to please use the county Amazon that we have set up instead of paying for Amazon purchases on an Amazon account they've created with their P card.
Is that happening right now?
Yeah. There's
Well,
no rule for it not to.
Can we just make a rule, making
I'm gonna work on a policy and then we should review it and ask ourselves, does this make sense?
Great.
Rather than just pull one out of the hat, cause that creates a lot of issues if it's not well thought out and enforceable.
thank you.
That
What would be an
applies across the
example of
board.
someone using their P card for Amazon?
I think it happens sometimes for our library, but they're buying books, they're not like purchasing random crazy things. It's just, it's hard, if we do that for one department, it happens in every department, and it's like, we can AP invoice Amazon
Yeah.
versus, which gives us a lead timeline, like 30 days to pay it. Versus when it's just going on the P card.
Yeah.
I have to justify, why does this department get a huge P card limit and another department doesn't? And the higher the P card limit and the more people with P cards, the more argument there is to try to claw funds back, you're like, well, that was not done correctly.
Yeah.
So we'd like an Amazon policy, and finance is happy to go train people how to use the county Amazon and set it up.
Awesome.
So.
How many- How many Amazon accounts are currently in use by the county, you think? Didn't we already
Well, I
get something on this?
No idea.
I would have to say, I do not know when people, it shows up on their P card, I don't know which Amazon account they're using.
I think there's,
Yeah.
I think there's three, there's like the county one, like finance and operations, I think the sheriff's office, and then the library. So not every department has their own. So we have
No.
umbrellaed into an Amazon business account, but we just need to set the rules for using that.
Okay, so we're down to 3, we're trying to get to 1,
When it makes sense, so the one that the library uses isn't under our umbrella versus we can, under the county Amazon, we can create a sheriff's office department in that Amazon.
okay,
And we'd like to do
You
that,
can
'cause
code it even.
it makes it a little easier to manage.
It's wonderful.
We wanna establish, or we have established authorization levels and procedures, and you guys saw the kind of like buckets for different levels of expenses, which we discussed earlier. It outlines the process for advertising, reviewing, and accepting bids, which we just wanna be transparent. Half of my core requests are researching, why did company X, Y, Z get blah, blah, blah dollars on every invoice and every payment related to Bob's Plumbing? And that is a huge amount of work for us to go dig back the last 5 years of Bob's Plumbing invoices and then defend why we went with Bob's Plumbing.
Yeah.
But if we have a bid and a review process and we know why we picked that bid and we give people equal opportunities to like apply for that contract, we can say, well, here's the resolution where that happened, here's our documentation. not that just like Bob's a good guy, or whatever the case may be. And so we really do wanna make sure that we're doing this. We don't have a dedicated procurement team, and finance does their best job to like hold down the fort in terms of reviewing. But it does slow down requests for processing. There are only so many of us. It reduces our purchasing power when we could have, I don't know, say we need tasers. We could have just ordered for everybody that needed them in their department for the county and had gotten a great rate, where everybody goes off on their own and orders, and then we've spent twice as much. It limits our bandwidth to research and procure the best deals. We only have so much time, and as much as I love calling every hotel for every conference, sometimes it's not the best use of my time. And then there's less oversight of purchases when people are kind of going out on their own, that they might not even know we could get a group rate.
Would you need another person in the office for that, or could you?
I think that's a bigger discussion, and are we there yet? Probably not at the point of having a procurement team, but it might be a good thing to think about eventually. It would kind of standardize ordering, you know, like all the laptops through one vendor, or making sure if we're gonna use internet services, which Liz has done a great job of consolidating that instead of having 50 accounts all over the place that no one knows half of them exist. We've really done a good job of cleaning those up, but we all also are assets management people and trying to track the grants and just so many things that eventually I do think it might be a smart idea to think about what could that look like in the future.
Yes.
Rest of your procurement policy, even when things are budgeted, I wanna note that we still require the same authorization levels and required procedures. We just wanna make sure, was it really budgeted? And what year was it budgeted for? And people get a little confused if at the end of the year, they're trying to frantically buy for that year, and I'm like, through the magic of accounting, we can post it to whichever year you'd like. So there's not a need to frantically spend. If something gets purchased in January, we can post it back to the year it was budgeted for. So we wanna kind of change the thinking around when, if something's budgeted for in a year, the expense happens in that year, and if not, we need to adjust the budget to move it to the next year if it didn't happen yet. You guys have the sole authority to commit to funds or enter into a contractual agreement on the county's behalf. That's why we really want you in the loop and knowing what people are doing. And it's the responsibility of the county department making the purchase to ensure that we have all of the documentation. That being said, we know it's new, so we reach out and request these things if they haven't arrived, but we hope people will just get in the habit of providing them, and then we'll get a little bit better as we continue to use the processes. Alright, P cards, I'm gonna go through kind of quickly because we've touched on them a bit before now, and you can stop me when you have questions. Currently, P card users are issued a card upon approval by the department director or elected official. P card users must sign a P card user agreement. Our policy says they'll sign it yearly. I'd like to revisit that thought of, could we perhaps have them sign it when they get the card and just sign an acknowledgement that they know the policy's been updated for the next year? That is a lot of people management, and tracking down paper agreements is challenging, but we wanna make sure people are agreeing to follow the rules. So I'd like to think about what that could look like to make it more doable. We require receipts and accurate coding by the P card user. Yes, Chris?
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt Candace with that. The other point I was going to make about the P card agreement is Colorado law requires a written agreement with employees in order to deduct expenses and stuff from their paycheck, their compensation. So that's another reason why, you know, I know it's a heavy lift, but even if we could have something electronic set up where they go in and click that they are re-acknowledging each year something that they have the P card, their agreement or something like that, that would be helpful to have.
Yeah, we would still get acknowledgement. I just think maybe emailing paper copies back and forth is what we're currently doing, that we could probably work with IT to create a better, more streamlined.
Totally
Wait.
agree.
Do we use DocuSign?
Everybody doesn't have it because of the expensive licensing every person.
You have to license every person. You can't, okay. Fun, bummer,
I'm the queen of fillable forms, so I'm
you know.
making our forms fillable, one
Yeah.
form at a time. P-card transactions require receipts and accurate coding. They're being coded. Do we every time have a receipt? I don't know, I've just gotten here, so I don't think it's been checked every single time for every single person, which is a bit of work. I don't think that has happened historically, but we're gonna sit down, you'll understand kind of how we pay them and check the P cards. We're not doing this every day. We've got set up on the 6th of each month, the time for me to sit down with 2 of our staff and audit the P cards for the next 2 months. I just think we need to figure out the best process for it. I think we were like, policy, with no thought of how policies would actually work with the humans doing, so we're kind of working through this right now. What we need is that this is done by the 5th of the month. Failure to submit the receipts and coding by the 5th, we'd like to give 1 warning. People are humans, they might miss the date. The second time, we would like to suspend the card, and the third time, we'd like to take the card away. Our policy doesn't outline the steps, it just says if you aren't doing it, we can take it. It feels harsh when it's new. We really could use some help from directors to be checking these things. If you're gonna give the responsibility of a P card to someone that's not a director or a deputy director in your department, some people elect a purchasing person, then we'd like for you to be responsible for the people you're giving cards to. It's much easier to make us the main guys, but it creates a lot of additional work for us. We review P card purchases, receipts, and coding to make sure they're accurate. One thing our policy doesn't specify is, well, it does specify undocumented items, but unwarranted items that are I feel like we need to have, because we don't have procurements, a little clarity around what an unwarranted item purchase is. I might need pens for my department. Try to pick something no one's asked me for. But if I go buy a $400 pen a person, that has not happened. That is not fiscally responsible, and I, as the finance director, reach out and say, I know you love this pen. This is a little out of control. Could you please not buy a $400 pen? In the future, this will be your responsibility if I see it again. But I really have no teeth in that request because we don't really define, feel like it's budgeted. I'm like, it shouldn't have been, you know, so
Right.
there
But
is a
then you
little.
talk to Tim, because Tim's ultimately their manager, and that's like a performance issue.
Sure,
100%.
if they work for 10.
100% that's a performance issue, and so you tell Tim like, hey, they just bought a $400 card,
Sure.
a pen, and Tim will be like, oh, their critical thinking is not lining up.
Right.
Everyone doesn't answer to Tim.
Well, no, I get that, I'm just saying
And
that
that's generally where I've had some.
okay, okay.
So
Some
no,
issues.
no gold plated pens.
Yes,
Right.
but because it's on a P card, it's a little hard for me to claw back.
Can't claw it back. Stop buying $400.
No one did that, this is just a fake example,
It's a great
a
example.
humorous one.
In your fake humorous example, you're talking about other elected officials
Sure.
who don't answer to Tim, cause everybody else answers to all the department
Yes,
heads.
and those we have been saying, absolutely not, that's personal purchase, like, so sorry you spent your money on that pen.
Okay, one more question, can we start clawing back P cards from everybody?
We
Just-
would love to do that,
Just give
Why
it,
don't
for
we?
your support.
department head gets one, each department gets one. There's a policy, like the department head says, okay, you tell me what you want, we have this internal, you fill out this paperwork, and then we run it by the department
Yes.
head. If it doesn't fit the policy, it goes to Tim. I don't know, is that crazy? Why do-
Cancel
No.
them, blame us. and we'll just
Why
take
do
it
I
from
think
there.
the big thing is we wanna identify when there is a need for additional cards. It is not great to take someone else's card and use it, but imagine DHS needs to serve children that don't have food and go grab them clothes. We don't want them to submit an AP invoice to go tackle those things, so I do think there are some departments, and I would just like to update our policy this year to include, this is where it makes sense that emergency responders, people who really are, and honestly, DHS, they're tracking all of that because it's reimbursable by the state and they have reporting every single month for those. We just wanna make sure, like, if there is a real reason that we document those real needs and that they're allowed to have, you know, a caseworker that has a card. And this is just an example, but
Yeah.
we wanna make sure we're not limiting people from doing the work they need to do, but also not opening us up to like $300 pens.
So-
Whereas the library, I noticed they have 8-10 employees. If every single one of those people had cards, they're all creating their own Amazon accounts, they're all buying the books that they really like, I mean, that just doesn't seem right.
Well, and that's certainly not happening for them, they have one, but we'd like to
Okay.
streamline their Amazon, or at least make sure we're under a county Amazon.
Whatever you
But
need.
also we'd like to have that just invoiced.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah.
county, in a county Amazon, we can ask, say, hey, give us an invoice.
We're
Yeah.
behind you, so whatever you need, just let us know, we'll
I think we just have to update some of our policies, but they're brand new, so you don't know what you don't know until you use them.
If I remember correctly, the library, as a children's librarian, we were ordering books
Yeah.
under one singular card.
Yep.
That was for the whole library, and
Yeah.
it's still that way, I think.
I
There
mean,
was a
we
worn
just
out,
wanna run through the cards and make sure, does this make sense, and have a conversation with directors about, okay, if this is your designated buyer, that's totally fine. But then they're kind of the buyer for your department, especially if they're departments that aren't like offering emergency services, or the other one I can think of is road and bridge, sometimes they have an emergency and they need to fix things like then.
The mechanic needs one to
yeah.
run to the hardware store.
But also like Mabel's on it and they provide receipts
Yes.
for everything.
Yes.
You know, and they're always like legitimate, so I think we just wanna think about when does it make sense and start to work with people to say, do you really need 5 cards, let's talk about it.
And if there's, repeat offenders or departments that you don't feel comfortable with, share it with us and we'll start clamping down on that. Seems like there's a lot of room for a little bit of drift.
you know,
Well-
We're on our second
Round.
audit, round of reviewing of the P card, so the
Yeah.
first one we took away a lot.
Yes.
Um,
We've done a ton of work
yeah,
to close them down.
and now that continues, right, with really like the, do you need one?
Yes.
Right, so like for me, like I barely use mine, it's generally used for the commissioners, for like the hotels or like conference registrations and stuff like that, right? But I don't expense a lunch or things like that, but I help make the rules so I know to follow them, so, part of that evaluation, like the examples that Candace brought up of like, alright, so like DHS, like child welfare, right, emergent situation, yes, totally makes sense.
Yep.
Other folks, like, just to have it, doesn't make sense, right?
Some guy working at the dump or something.
Right. So yeah, so that second audit, that second check is still ongoing. And then really, like Candace has been talking about, is really just getting everyone to invoice, cause if you have an invoice, then we can cut a check for it.
when was the last round of consolidating, eliminating P cards?
That's
Roughly.
before Jessica left, so she left in October, so August, September,
Oh, wow, that recently,
yeah,
okay,
and
but
then
can you rough percentage of how many we eliminated?
half,
Half, wow,
yeah.
awesome, that's a
Question.
huge step in that direction.
Why didn't anybody say that? Like the community, you knew people were talking about it in the community, that P cards were a problem. Like where was the public notice, whatever, where was the communication saying like, hey, totally get it, we hear you, we agree, we just did an audit, we're establishing these policies, this is what we found, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Like where was that?
That's a great question. We are not very good at, celebrating our wins or talking about the changes we make, or right, or perhaps it's germane of being like, hey, we have a P card policy. People are like, what? No one cares, but,
We
yeah,
care.
to your, we care, yeah, so, to your point, and then I think also too, sometimes as we like work through, you know, these things, if the board wants to show it off and talk about it, like, that's
Heck yeah.
great, that is awesome,
Yeah, I
but,
think it would go a long way towards, you know, building trust within the community that
Yes.
what's happening in here, the changes that, you know, have been implemented and are being implemented are in the taxpayers' best interests, and, you know, we can really repair some fractured relationships.
We get to have a communications meeting soon.
Yeah, I think we're really gonna be leaning heavy on them to
Yeah.
continue stuff out and get that.
One thing I was saying during the campaign was like writing a column once a month in the paper. That would be a good thing for the column, and then, I don't know, maybe we could rotate, like, and we talk to Chris and say, hey, Chris, we wanna say this and this and this, and then every month. And see how
She can
See how
edit
I'm
it.
sharing the responsibility here, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be a really good thing for people to know and be like, hey, man, look, we're doing something.
The Commissioner's Corner,
Commissioner's Corner written by me, but with consent from Chris and you, cause as I understand it, I couldn't just go.
joint statement from the,
I mean, we can come up with a whole
Three.
community,
A really loose, like, not like, this is a statement from your county
Okay,
commission, more
okay.
like, hey, this is what's going on, and like a real casual.
what's
almost
up,
like
Lake
a-
County?
Yeah. But a little thing like what's coming up, how you can get involved, or what's coming up, what you need to be aware of, and then some successes, like.
Yeah, I mean, we got that one, you got that one pushed out, I don't know where did that go onto the county website?
yeah, it's
About-
county website
okay.
and then to, social media.
Oh, cool.
Maybe I'm over relying on the paper, I read the paper religiously, right? And how many people in this community do?
I do, I love it.
I mean, me too, I love the hard copy, but if we also had a Commissioner's Corner in that, or you know, I might drive up to, yeah,
That word gets around
Yeah.
at work, did you see the paper that,
yeah.
anyway,
I
sorry,
definitely wanna
Candace.
have,
You're okay.
I definitely wanna have a communication strategy meeting.
Yeah,
Cause
Yeah.
it's not just the paper, yes, that's a great idea, but like, how are we doing it? What are our goals? What's gonna be our strategy for actually communicating?
Yeah.
Alright, and I'm pretty sure we've got a couple of
strategy
meetings
sessions.
with Liz, yeah,
Okay.
to talk
Yeah.
about that.
Sounds good,
Alright, so
sidetrack.
I'm gonna run through this
Tangent,
quickly,
Fabulous.
just because you guys will also, they get printed in the paper, but any packet that gets created, remember, a packet's just a collection of things being paid. And Tyler makes us create a packet to process it. So the P card payment packet, and our request for having this information from people will make a little more sense, like the deadline we set. We don't get the statement for the last month till the first of the month. And at the first of the month, we're gathering all of the P card transactions, and we're saying, is every receipt uploaded? Is everyone coded? Some people have like 20 different transactions and each one has to be coded to a different area.
Mhm.
We are checking those, we're reaching out to people that haven't done it, and we're asking for it because we have to review them all. We have a second review by someone else who hasn't prepared the packet, and then we have to mail the check. And the due date for that check is on the 12th. So we have to get everything processed, track down the people who haven't done it, get it back checked, make sure nothing's missing, and then mail out that payment overnighted in order to get to Wells Fargo before the due date of the 12th. And you might be like, why don't you just pay it by ACH? Yeah, that's a great question. We would love to pay it by ACH, but we aren't signers on the bank account, and I believe there was some sort of issue with getting the information to Wells Fargo quickly enough.
Wells Fargo was not a great partner.
Yeah, they have lots of weird rules around it, and we spent 2 hours this week talking with them again, trying to figure
Again?
out setting up the ACH. Well, yes, because this is a ridiculous timeline.
Yeah.
So we are gonna continue to try to work on it, but we're paying
Yes.
$20 overnight a check. It would be very challenging to switch to a new P card person, but I would not be heartbroken if we can't work with them to get it switched. We're also paying around $1,600 in fees to them a year, which I would rather not pay for them to house our P cards. I didn't pick it. I didn't pick this.
What?
I received it.
It's just another area we can
I
explore
do
improvement.
think, maybe quarter 2, we're got a lot of working on this quarter,
Mhm.
to clean up. We could have the discussion of, okay, if we really can't figure out the fee we're paying them and they won't work with us to get our ACH set up and we need to clean up some P cards, maybe the solution is we find a new P card
Yeah.
issuer.
Maybe
Did
Kill a-
you figure out the
kill a
points
few with
that we
one
have?
stone.
No, they're working on that.
Okay,
We've spent a
yeah,
lot of time
that's-
this
yeah.
week.
You got points?
We could use that for all kinds of things.
Caribbean vacations?
Yeah.
I was
Why?
thinking chairs for the.
We're gonna be,
really like, thank you.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna,
steal one. Before you get rid of them,
Take a
Andy.
few home, you know, put some in your office.
Our timelines are really dictated by the fact that we would like to pay our bills on time. So the import of the previous month's transactions, on the 6th of the month, we pull a final report, we have to review that report because we've asked everyone to code by the 5th. Right now, people on occasion miss it, we remind them, they get it done, we re-remind them, and by the 10th, we finally kind of get that done. Which is very hard for us to like then overnight it, get it done by the 12th. It kind of puts us up against timeline, and then if we can't find you to sign that check, it makes our lives even worse. So we don't wanna continue to operate in that fashion, so we are going to hold people to the 5th of the month. So that we can pay in a timely fashion. And get a signature quick enough to overnight it till we figure out if there's another, card option.
Candace,
Yes,
sorry, real quick. Is it,
sorry, I'm talking quickly.
no, you're doing great. It's all done, when they send their packet, is it like Tyler?
Mhm.
Whatever, document, whatever that they're sending you?
So we create the packet based off of what's in Wells Fargo. So they actually log into Wells Fargo and they can see all their transactions and they're able to code there
Yeah.
and also upload a receipt.
And can they do it as they go?
Sure, we would love it if they did it as they go.
Just,
This is historically not done.
I used to have a, you know, like a standing date every Friday that I would go through. And I was just wondering if that was allowed or if the software.
Oh, yeah, they can do it at any point that they want to do it.
Okay, so no excuses.
It's just new.
Almost half.
It will get better. It's all relatively new.
How do you look at it again?
So we're gonna prepare the final import, so, sorry. Anything that has happened in Wells Fargo, we make sure it's all coded, we make sure we have everything ready to go. We're gonna import that data into Tyler. There's no one manually entering from Wells Fargo to Tyler. That would really set you up to make mistakes. No one's perfect. So anything that happens in Wells Fargo gets downloaded and the file's uploaded. And it ensures that all the necessary documentation and the transactions, the coding upload to Tyler, and then we, in accounting, fact check, they all upload correctly. I know it seems like, is that too much? It's not, we almost spent a whole lot of money at what looked like PF chains, people would have been outraged. But really, the Tyler software saw the PF and it was Pfizer, and we uploaded, vaccines. But we caught it because we back check it, we just didn't, no one's spending thousands of dollars at PF chains. It just uploaded to Pfizer.
It's just a
Or
glitch in the,
Pfizer uploaded to PF chains,
glitch in
we
the
caught it,
Tyler
we
matrix.
fixed it, but we do back check these for that reason is, software generally is great, but on occasion, mistakes happen. So the import should be an AP packet. We review that packet so we don't look like we're going wild at PF Chang's, and then the final import happens before we pay. So we kind of have like a pre-import check it, make sure we're not doing weird things or something's not accidentally uploaded wrong, and then we actually process it, and that's when it gets, a check gets created and we pay it. Again, we use a checklist for everything that we do in finance with more than one person reviewing, so there's multiple levels of approvers. And so we'll move to grants unless you guys have P-card questions. P-card policy is new. The fact that people aren't doing it perfectly, we totally understand. Some people they're not going to look at the policies. They didn't read them, so they're like, well, I didn't know there was one. That's our opportunity to educate departments and work with them, and we wanna continue to do that. But we do at some point have to say, hey, we've communicated this, it changes every year, you should pay attention for updates, here where you can find them. I do send out, or I will be sending out an email that says, hey, our limits are going back down, and we're gonna have a discussion about whether your limit makes sense or not, and how we could maybe move some things to AP rather than P cards. I think in the absence of a finance director, some people needed like emergent increases, and those increases stayed, and so that's part of our audit, is to say, okay, this was a one-time expense. I'm happy to report Wells Fargo does let me give someone an increase and end date it. So sure, we needed to process W-2 forms. This isn't a real example, but just for example, and we needed to order a bunch of forms and we were gonna be over our limit. It's like a one-time increase for the extra 1,000 we needed, and it goes back in at the end of that. So we are trying to not just, okay, you needed this one thing this one time, we upped your limit, we forgot about it, cause there are 82 cards. We can now set it to drop back down, and so we really are trying to say, you need to provide a rationale for your increased request. Has to make sense, has to be approved, and once that happens, we'll schedule it to up for that month, so you can get done what you need to get done, but it drops back down, so we don't have like a $10,000 limit every month forever. Any questions?
I don't understand, when you came into this,
6 weeks ago?
yeah, what was the status? Like, there were clearly P cards and there was a P card procedure, if not a policy.
There's policy.
There was a policy? Okay, just how much of this is new?
The policies, I think, all got approved in July, so it's,
Okay.
I mean, in terms of the county, like, it is really new.
For sure, yeah.
I don't know, how incredibly well they were being enforced in the absence of me.
Yeah.
Because everyone's swimming in work, they're learning the policy, they're being, when people, wanna argue about it, like,
Yeah.
they're emailing back and forth and trying to process hundreds of invoices.
Yeah.
And generally, I would be able to be like, that is not your job to argue back and forth, if it's the second email, you just let me know, I'll be there.
Yeah.
So I think without that happening, the finance has done the best job that they can. Will's been amazing at back checking AP and being like, this makes no sense.
Nice.
No. These are not county tires, these are you tires, and we're not paying for them.
Yeah.
Which is why AP's great. So I just think we're getting there. It's not gonna be perfect tomorrow. Am I gonna catch everything ever? Is the finance team? Probably not.
Yeah,
But we are gonna do our best job to clean it up, and once people get in the habit of doing it, it will get better.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a history. Tim, what was the financial policies like when you got here?
There were none.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
we started with, my first year, we started with like just like big general financial policies. And then from there, broke it in, well, I should take that back. Right before I started, Chris created, the V1 of, procurement and contracting policy, so that's all we had.
Mhm.
So then I worked with the team and we created like a broad overview of financial and budgeting policies, right? Debt policies, investment policies, all that kind of stuff. Then we started, right, like piece by piece, like grants are a huge issue, so we need grants policy. P card, an issue, we need P card policy. And then updating the policies as we go. So every policy that was adopted, every policy on there says that it shall be reviewed at least once annually. Which means that it'll be reviewed internally, and if there are changes, they're gonna come back before the board for those changes and recommendations.
And who was the leadership around this? Was it a board directed, or was it your expertise coming in, you advising, or was it really, was it team oriented? Like, was this on the list of things that the board really wanted to make sure was changing with the county commissioner, or no?
I don't think, it came from me. I don't think the board knew, they didn't know what they didn't know,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
just knew that there were systems and processes and procedures and policy improvements that needed to be made.
Yeah,
Biggest one obviously being finance and budget.
yeah,
So that's where I started.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I also think that's like, it's helpful in our budget process, because we also check in on people's progress towards how much are you spending of your supplies budget? And
Yeah.
checking in if somebody's overspending, like what are you spending it on? And then this past year, when we required everyone to ratchet down their budget by 5%, a lot of that came out of supplies, where people were like, okay, I need to really tighten up on what my employees are spending money on, and then holding them to that. So it's been multiple efforts, I think, of keeping a closer eye on things.
Thank you.
So grants, very timely. This database was created by the finance team, last year. I do not feel that it is 1,000% fully accurate list of all of our grants. I identified a few that were missing, yesterday, just even in one department, so we are continually working on this. Some of the grants are very old, and so locating the actual documents when we didn't have in the people's inboxes has been very challenging. This is still a work in progress, like current state, we have our grants policy in place, which we kind of went over together. Grants are added to the database upon award, and part of what we ask for people to do is to submit like a new grant application. I will be the first to say our grants policy needs some workshopping, and I really would love to have input from the people who are having to utilize the tool to figure out how can we achieve what you need to streamline your grants process, but also make sure we're documenting and tracking them correctly. And I think we'll see some revisions to the policy, but it was, I think, a good start. There are some things that definitely, I think, we need to make the process not incredibly laborious for staff, so that we're not holding up grants. And so one thing I'd like to probably look into is, could we have a tiered approach so that a federal grant worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million or whatever isn't the same as like $1,000 grant for whatever. So I think we could have some strategy around that and really get feedback from departments about what would be helpful. We are constantly trying to track down what grants exist, determine if refunds have been received and accurately recorded. So if people reach out and ask me to create a new account code for the grant, I'm like, oh, do we have the documentation? Do we have the word letter? Did you get it approved if it's, a significant one? And I'm trying to check in as I'm being asked to create account codes, so we're not just blindly creating account codes, which we know the funds are not gonna get parked in that right bucket if everybody isn't communicating. So right now, the lack of communication between finance departments, elected officials, is currently a growth opportunity that I see that we can start to facilitate a little bit better communication. And it may be a lot of in-person meetings at first, but we've also kind of had some discussions, and I'll talk in the next slide, about how we could create a more user-friendly platform that isn't Tyler, but that finance can still get what they need and put it into Tyler. Everybody's not an accountant, ERP software doesn't work for everybody, it doesn't make sense, but could we get what we need without finding out there's a whole grant we didn't know existed on the finance side, but also sets people up for success outside of our department. So policy revisions in 2025, We would like to include a little more input from department directors and elected officials and you guys, like about what makes sense. Right now, our database is external to Tyler, we just created it because we needed somewhere to like say, what grants do we have and how many and how many documents do we need to save? There are about 163 items in the database that have associated folders with all of the documents. It's hundreds of documents from goodness knows how old some of them were that were unearthed from inboxes and old drives and all kinds of fun explorations. So that's why I can say I don't know that we've uncovered every single one, but it's still a work in progress. We're currently exploring some options with Liz and her IT team for a user-friendly grants and contract management solution. So some of our goals around that idea are to develop a comprehensive and user-friendly platform, something that looks like a website to the person looking at it, really navigatable, like has maybe a pie chart that shows like, here's how much you're granted left, here's how much you spent, here's how many reimbursements you submitted, here's, what's upcoming, and make it a little more like user-friendly, but like we're still getting the documentation we need. We're still tracking, like in Tyler, what's actually happening, but we need to know people have submitted for reimbursements in order to help with that piece. We want it to document, centralize, and track grants from inception, the idea that you might wanna apply to the reporting and closeout. Features we'd like to include are an automated grant request form so that it's not just emailed to finance and one of us gets to setting up a time to review it with you when we have spare time. We have so much of it running around. We want to really make sure people feel that they're submitting something and a human is receiving it and responsible for it. And that we have time to like look at it with you, not just put it off till we can finally frantically get to it. We wanna automate communication between the grant reviewer and applicant, so it's like, I'm reviewing it, it doesn't match this, and this, it's automated. As soon as I check off the things that are missing, you get an automated email that lets you know, hey, you need to submit this and this, or there's a comment box, so it's a little more streamlined. We want easily accessible reports that are for grants in process, what funds have been awarded, and what's being reimbursed to date. And we would like to figure out if we could have some sort of tie-in to the ERP Pro system, in terms of just accounting codes. So when your grant gets approved and it's awarded, we've got the account code set up for you before that money even arrives.
Dreamy, does that exist?
It doesn't, we're building it.
Whoa, is that something that, it feels like something that many government entities around the country would want.
Sure, I'm certain there are lots of items like that that are very, very expensive. We are gonna figure out a system that works for us, that is affordable and presents some options with prices, so we can figure out what would make sense.
Would it also be sellable?
That's what.
Like, would
I
this
don't
be-
know.
Yeah. Very
It
excited.
depends what we use, I'm not the IT professional.
Don't plant the seed with Liz and Justin, otherwise they
Right.
will quit and go hawk it to other governments.
Good to know, thanks for the warning.
We'd like to think that this is a training opportunity. We want departments to manage their grants. We are not like as finance looking for another opportunity to track way more things. But we want them to be able to track their grants and for us to know that they exist and to support them in the process. Mainly they're under our audit whether they like it or not. And we would like to get our audit done on time and pass with flying colors. So I think big things are, we just wanna make sure we are working to create something that doesn't fall through the cracks due to personal transitions, that it doesn't leave with you when you, in your inbox when you leave, or other disruptions. Mind you, this doesn't exist, this is like what we're working towards. Right now, what exists is us going to track down grants from people. So a big part of asking for people to follow the policy is we can't track what we do not know exists. So just know we're gonna work on the policy, we're gonna work with departments, figure out, okay, what grants do you have that maybe we didn't know exist? It also helps us, I think people put out, we want a reimbursement, and they're like, oh, that reimbursement was received. Well, if it never hit the bank account, the reimbursement was not received. And we can't help you track down if it hit the bank account, cause not everyone in the county isn't logging into the bank account. So we finance have to know was on its way to say, oh, look, there it is, let's say it's received in the right spot. Any questions? I'm not gonna take till 5, guys, I promise. It's a lot.
Oh, we're not gonna know what to do with ourselves.
You can slow down if you want.
No, you're crushing, thank you.
Yeah, doing great, I'm super impressed with
All the
your work,
info.
so
Yeah,
thanks for
Nice.
looking out for us.
second that.
Thank the finance team, I'm new here, they are crushing.
Unanimous?
Yeah.
Unanimous? Impressed.
Payroll
Yes.
process. Payroll's not perfect. We are not perfect, we haven't dialed in all of our processes, HR owns a piece of getting information in. Finance owns a piece of payroll, and honestly, a lot of counties don't have a separate HR and payroll, which that is a whole other level of managing things. You want an HR person who understands the legal ramifications of HR decisions and decisions around benefits and communicating them. You want someone in finance who understands the accounting side of payroll. And I'm working really closely with Zoe and have a call tomorrow with Eagle, who has a separate HR and payroll, to say, okay, you guys have done this much longer, who does what, and how do you back check one another, and I got job descriptions from them to say, okay, rather than recreate the wheel, what are successful counties that are doing this well doing, and how can Zoe and I work together to streamline like clarification around who does what and how we can both back check one another, so no one has to be perfect at every step. So do know, you may hear about payroll issues, we are working on it, we are trying to devise a plan to fix it, are we always gonna be perfect? No. So, we'll get as close as we can. So Lake County payroll is run bi-weekly. Directors and elected officials review their employees' hours in ESS, which is Tyler's time and leave tracking system. And this is supposed to be done by noon the Monday of payroll week. Not every department uses ESS. Some departments use other systems. I think Public Works is one because they're managing like different types of leave and hourly, and they have Public Works items, they have a different system. I believe the sheriff's office, they have the same system but a different
But they're different, so
leave.
yeah, so the reason for Public Works, so they use their system, PubWorks, so when they go, and maintenance team, road and bridge use it, so you can track by project as well. So in man hours, yeah, so when you go to mow Ice Palace Park, right, you're there for 2 hours, you can log that, so we know we can keep track of those operational hours. Anyway, so then that extract comes out and Mabel puts it in with Tyler. The sheriff's office, they have, Chris, you're gonna have to help me with this, the sheriff's office has emergency responder, fire and police folks have different overtime eligibility hours given their schedules and what they work, so they I think it's like 82, I can't remember now.
80, it is a different structure under the wage and pay laws for public safety employees.
Yeah, so they operate different, they use Tyler. Sometimes it's hard to get the deputies to put their time in, but it's getting better.
We're learning,
We are, yes.
we had a learning session this morning. So essentially, we're getting all this information and trying to run payroll for everybody all at once, not make any errors, but some things are in external systems, sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve, so we were catching what we can. And I think each payroll has gotten progressively better. Each pay period, we have to ensure new hire information is accurate and complete. We're reviewing employees for changes, making sure that departed employees no longer are showing up. If we're not supposed to pay them, or if there's a new employee that they exist. So we're auditing all kinds of things, and we'll talk about the review process in just a moment. We're uploading the Public Works and DHS extract files for employee hours, and the ESS extract for county staff. The payroll review process, which is, pretty lengthy, begins on Tuesday afternoon, and you'll kind of understand why I wanna walk you through the process. And it's completed by finance staff, and it is completed by a member who is not running payroll. We don't want someone entering the hours, for people that would be then back checking themselves and then printing the check for signature.
Fair enough.
Payroll packet gets finalized by Thursday morning. We really try to have it back checked and finalized by Wednesday afternoon. So that we've got it processed and can kind of catch any weird things like a bank transaction doesn't happen, or actually we can fix it before the person realizes like, oh gosh, there was an issue with your bank account, we need your updated information. One thing that's a little challenging is ESS sometimes doesn't talk exactly directly with Tyler, so that creates a manual back check process. Part of this is just the Tyler software, it's a known issue, we're working with them to try to mitigate that, so we don't be perfect every time. Payroll packet's finalized Thursday morning for direct deposit, Thursday morning, the direct deposit files get sent to the bank because they actually have to initiate that. Paper checks get printed, some people prefer paper check, if you're brand new, we print your first one to make sure, we do a $0 transaction that hits your bank account, so we can make sure your bank account's real, we don't have any arrows, so that your next check actually is a real one that gets deposited. We need you guys to be present because people would love to be paid, so we're asking for you to sign the check Thursday at 1. After that, treasurer's reports are sent to communicate the appropriate amounts to be transferred and which accounts the transfers need to happen from. These transfers are related to the actual payroll amount, taxes and retirement amounts. We, after that, create an email department payroll distribution reports, that is partially directives who are doing, managing their budget to know what's gone out the door. We file and submit tax liability retirement payments, and then we've got a series of reports that we send out quarterly. Those are like the 941, the UI, and the wage withholding. We have to submit those to the state, and then yearly, sorry Patrick. Yearly, we send out W-2s and 1099s, which we sent out yesterday through paper copies. We needed a file called a TCC code that doesn't exist, but we've got it now for next year, so we can just e-file those bad boys and not print them out. But we did get them sent out.
Good job.
I'll stop for a second, see if you're so close.
How close are we? You're cruising.
Yeah.
I could really slow down if you want, I just
No, no.
feel like
I
stop
just-
me with questions.
I gotta say, I know I'm naive, but it really blows my mind that we can be in 2025 and this be new for such a large entity. And it's not that it's like, oh, I didn't know this was a problem. It's more like, how did the county survive? How did this, like, what spit and duct tape held this place together for 150 years? These are like basic, I'm grateful for you, Candace, it's holistic, it's,
I'm grateful for me, I just got here.
yeah, I'm grateful for,
These are your people.
I'm grateful for all staff. I'm just flabbergasted over here, I guess.
It is kind of funny to have the community like blowing up about like transparency and financial, and I'm like, we're doing way better than anyone else too, like.
Yeah.
Right, all these positive changes were met with such negative response, and from the outside, listening, we were kinda like, it was kinda like, oh yeah, that does seem weird, and then from the inside, you're like, what was weird was that this wasn't happening already.
Also, like the lag time on information that is like what's currently real time happening here and what people think is happening is significant. It's like a year it's definitely at minimum a year, if not more for certain things. Yes, I can't wait, I know, we're gonna crush that.
Communication strategy, that's gonna be the key to.
Yeah.
things.
Continue
Yeah.
to crush,
Yeah,
Candace.
I will say it was surprising to me when I started, like I kinda knew what I was walking into, but not fully.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know how this place survived for so long, man, I honestly don't, and I mean, but I think when you look around at, new windows, you know, road conditions, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
now you know why.
Yeah.
And there was also two, working with the past board, and then we'll continue working on it with you guys starting in February at the board retreat, but really like, you three are the decision makers and the vision makers and the strategists for this community for, the next year, but really like, next decade, next 50 years, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that the commissioners ever had that opportunity either.
Yeah.
Cause you were managing the library and you're like, I don't know what to do.
I need to order new children's books.
You're right, yes, like,
And you're managing public works and DHS and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think that's hard, cause sometimes too, you hear the community narrative of we elect the commissioners to manage the county, so, to run the county, why aren't they doing it?
Yeah.
Everybody comes with different skill sets and all of that, and like, you see where it got us.
It takes a village.
Yes.
Alright, so payroll packet review, we have an accountant, Bryce, who is phenomenal with large data sets and quite honestly is an amazing analyst. And he has really been doing a lot of work in terms of our payroll packet review. Feel really fortunate to have him, because reviewing this is no joke. The first level review is, and you might wonder, why would we do this in steps? Why not review it at all? If someone's missing from the packet, you're not gonna catch that their time entry's off. And their time entry's off, a lot of their benefit deductions could be off. So first of all, we have to process, we have to get it entered, make sure it's entered correctly, and we have to check to make sure nobody's missing. That requires that we don't miss any new people, that we don't realize someone needs to be removed, because finance, we're getting this information from a lot of people, we're not in the department working, we're relying on, communication from department heads and making sure that ESS has been updated before we pulled the report, so it really is a lot of back and forth to understand that information, so that's a big reason we're working with HR to say, okay, how can we streamline the transfer of information from departments to us and you to us, and to know if somebody's new, that we've made sure this new deduction we weren't expecting, we look at all the benefits we offer. We do not have it memorized for every single person that works here, we have to have good systems, and we're developing and improving them. So first of all, we make sure everybody's in there, if they're not, it's sent back to payroll to correct it, go track down the information for the employee, make sure we know their start date. If someone's gone, make sure we have removed them. Once that's been corrected, it gets sent back for review to make sure that the time entries are correct. Now, this seems like it wouldn't be that difficult, but it does get very challenging when there's overtime or missing entries. There's a whole host of different situations that can happen that are not consistent for people, especially within like the sheriff's office. There might be paid vacation or sick leave, personal days, holidays, those are supposed to be approved by a director, but if the director misses one person, well, now we realize they're not in the payroll packet, or they're in there, if we know that they're salaried, we're like, okay, why did they only work 20 hours? Let's figure that piece out. So we're looking for kind of outliers to what we typically see and then going and researching this. Those get communicated back to the person entering payroll, they fix all of those issues. We run the third level of review, and this is to look at benefit deductions. So we offer each of these benefit options, and everybody might have any combination of these. right? So that means we've gotta make sure we record what the employee is paying, the employer portion of it, and get it correctly entered. If you see issues, generally, what we notice is it's a timing issue of like it was entered too late, or the report was pulled too early, or we've changed rates, we just changed rates for the new year in terms of, people had open enrollments, now it's all changed again. So a lot of those issues we're trying to catch, we're not perfect, but we really have started to create some good systems to catch those. One thing we've started doing that I think is fairly new is that we are getting the monthly billing statements from these different entities, like our insurance, medical, dental, and vision, our FSA, like we're able to kind of match up what we're being billed, and because Bryce really is amazing at large data sets, he's able to take those bills and pull them into a spreadsheet and check them against what went out the door, to make sure we're being billed for what's going out the door, and what's going out the door matches the bill.
Mhm.
And that doesn't sound like it's that much work, but when you're talking about 163 people plus and all
those
these
different
options,
categories.
it is a lot of work. And he does this all in about 2 days worth of time. So this process happens, we can't even start to review the payroll until, we can have new additions and exiting employees, we're updating that, getting pay change forms, but we run pay bi-weekly and people can't enter their time until they've finished the 2-week period. So that Monday, after you finish the end of a 2-week period, approvers are saying, okay, this is what happened. And if it all gets in there perfectly the first time, we don't have to say, oh gosh, so-and-so, you haven't approved your time, can you do it? Which, sometimes I have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm the problem, it's me, and I need to get in there, you're trying to have 15 meetings and approve your time for people and back check it all, because you're waiting for it to be entered. It creates a very time-sensitive process that doesn't give a lot of time, and there's just not really a lot to do about that. We pay bi-weekly, that's pretty standard. It helps a lot of people with budgeting. I would never suggest to do it monthly, that is hard a switch to make, but we are doing a lot of things to get that done. So we are working on some payroll policies, we've got some in our handbook. So here are some goals that we'd like to work towards. The hours are submitted and approved by 10 a.m. Right now, that time, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's either 1 or 2 p.m. Which gives us even less time to go track people down so we can start reviewing it. We really want to work with HR to understand like the best bi-weekly deadlines for employee changes to happen. So sometimes an employee has a benefits or bank account or name change, and that extract has already been pulled together by us, and it's like, could just be a matter of a couple hours, but it's enough for someone to get left off or not removed. So we wanna really have a good communication piece to say, okay, this is when it's happening, if it hasn't happened by this time, it has to go to the next pay period. We want to, and this is auditor's request, we want consistent policies around on-call overtime and department work contracts. I think it doesn't matter if there's exceptions, we just wanna have them documented, like if there's exceptions because the sheriff's office doesn't operate like the rest of us do, great. Let's just add it to the policy, so it doesn't seem like we're just like breaking our own rules around that. When changes like COLA, merit, or employee elections happen, those happen in ESS. We did have a request to make sure like we are documenting that people are signing off, so I think that's just how can we make that happen, or like at the end of the year, you've gotten cost of living raise, we may have emailed and communicated it, but we wanna make sure people are signing off, so we're really clear, like the pay might change and here's what it might look like. So a better way to document it. And then we want to clearly delegate payroll and benefits tasks so we can make sure that we have a good system to back check one another and that somebody doesn't think someone else is entering, you know, new employees, but oh no, we over here at finance should have entered them, or whatever the case is. To just clarify like, hey, here's what we're gonna do and what makes sense. So part of that is the meeting tomorrow. And then I have a meeting with Zoe just quickly to tell her what I learned. And then she's gonna have a vacation and we'll circle back to figuring out what's the best walkthrough. I think there's been a lot of back and forth in the past with HR and finance about who owns payroll, and really, I think we all own it. We all wanna do a good job, we wanna make sure their stuff is right, our stuff is right, and start to work together to get it done instead of a battle. And I've never felt that battle, but I think it's just, we need to be clear communicators and pleasant to work with. So I think we are working on that, so do you know Zoe and I have identified like, hey, we probably just need to like see what other people are doing and figure out what works for us. So we are definitely on that. Last slide. Internal controls that we have. AP and payroll include an internal review. That is, a lot of these internal controls, I think they were really developed well over this last year before I arrived. With delegated review authority, so you're not reviewing yourself, somebody else is reviewing you. We've created checklists to make sure we're following the same quality and accuracy reviews each time. We've created a lot of standard operating procedures, so those are documents that you could pull up and kind of follow those steps to make sure, you know, we're entering things correctly. If we need to void a check that's stale dated, we're all following the same process. We've got detailed task lists and job descriptions by position, and these are things auditors are asking us for as well. We've standardized documentation, like the invoices you saw, like making sure they all include, you know, same things. And they have the appropriate department signatures. We have HR entries and payroll separated from one another, and you might think that doesn't matter, but you really don't want somebody entering information with the intent of running a false payroll, and then it gets back checked by somebody that doesn't realize the same person entered and ran it. So we do have those separated out, at least where we're not, that isn't a concern. Our treasurer is separate from finance, and this does cause some real challenges for understanding what was received and recorded correctly, but we've really worked with Patrick and his team to say, okay, here's what you should expect and here's the accounting code, let's make sure you have one that matches our side. Checks are printed by AP and payroll, but signatures do not happen by us. We're not sending grade checks to ourselves. And works in progress are just really still continuing to document policies and procedures and make sure they make sense and that they're doable. We are continually updating our operating procedures as Tyler makes updates or things change, so that just because somebody retires, we don't lose all that knowledge and we're training from a base of, I don't know what we did. To continue to separate HR entry and payroll specific duties in a way that makes sense. And then we are really working hard this year to do monthly reconciliation, so treasurer's office is reconciled and we are able to reconcile to them and reconcile DHS to them, and that we're reviewing those every month. That is not gonna be a perfect process. We're working with CVS Accounting, who has done a lot of the accounting for the county before, the third party. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you're in there and you realize you don't know it. Some of our Tyler accounts, so mapping happens when you make an entry, another entry posts somewhere else. It's called double entry accounting, that's how it should work. Sometimes things we do post to a different spot that they shouldn't. We've only just started to realize some of those setup errors. We can fix it with a journal entry, and we're gonna work with Tyler to get those things tackled, but because we aren't in the treasurer side and our side, sometimes we were not catching those. And working with Christine, we actually spent a couple hours with her yesterday walking through, okay, when we're making this entry, it's actually posting over here. When we think it's posting over here, what do we need to do to mitigate that in the future? So we are slowly really learning how to create correct reconciliations so that we can be on top of it and know, hey, are we spot on with what we did last month before the end of the year, or in the case of 23, the beginning of 24. Any questions?
Just impressed with the level of detail you've gone through here and the presenting solutions to known problems as opposed to being presented with problems and we don't know solutions, like that, your ratio of that is a lot different than a lot of what we've been hearing, so thank you. Yeah, a lot of it, not a lot of it, definitely there was some of that that went over my head, I'm not gonna lie, but it, for the most part, this sounds like we're in such a better place, or we're about to be, or you have a North Star on which direction we need to head. So, yeah, I'm stoked on that, thank you.
Yeah, good work.
We just ask for some grace because we have a lot of work to do and it is a team effort. And I would like to retain the staff that I have by not burning them out. So we are gonna make great progress forward, but people have a life outside of this job. And I wanna honor that and not expecting them to do 5 times the work that is really their job to do.
That's the trick with deferred maintenance, is to be able to like continue to do the day-to-day tasks while also having space to go back and
Fix things.
maintain, what hasn't been maintained.
So as long as you're patient with us and know that we're gonna give you progress updates as we get things done, but it's not like I'm gonna like know every grant tomorrow and it's all gonna be magically fixed this year, that's just not real.
The progression is more than adequate in my opinion. my view.
Candace, the software for grants that you're hoping that is like a dream and I love it. Is that something that's been budgeted for this year or is that more of a long-term goal you're hoping to come to us with ideas?
It was not budgeted for this year because,
Cause you just got here.
and I think there was this idea before that if we understand Tyler well enough, it'll be the solution for everybody. And it's a repository for information and it's a great finance tool because it is not necessarily wonderfully usable to just normal people, even with training. What people don't understand, they don't use. So the thought that we need to have a system that works for us to get what we need, I mean, this happens in accounting all the time, like there's ticketing systems at a ski resort, they're not expecting the ticketers to use an accounting software, they're like, use the ticket sales platform, and accounting goes and gets the information they need. I think that's a different view of the issue and getting feedback from people, I think that's new as of, I got here and Liz and I both, I think similarly, and I'm like, okay, how can we get what we need, but make it where everybody else can use it. So it's not budgeted for because it just arrived in our heads. And we've just gotten some more IT people that have some cool ideas about solutions, and I think we wanna talk about, okay, what would be the best fit to get us where we need to get, but also is within budget.
Thank you.
It's been quite a journey, like county finance, but do know that you have an amazing finance team.
Sounds like it.
Who's done all of this, and two closing thoughts, right, of just like when I started, right, just like the AP process and the length of time for that. Also then, the commissioners were reviewing payroll,
Yes.
which was weird. And I started reviewing payroll and there was just error after error after error, and then one time I was out of the office and the commissioners reviewed it and they forgot me, and I used to show up at the very first one. Anyway, it's been a journey, but we have worked really, really hard to nail the basics, and I know that's weird to say for an organization of this age and this size, but The future's bright. If anyone ever talks to you about, getting your, signature, either like wanting to have like an electronic copy of it or a stamp of it, don't do it. Former sheriff did that. Some staffers did some things that they should not have done. Yes,
I
so
read about it.
if you're gonna sign something, do it yourself. Staff will be there with you. They're there to help you answer questions as well, so when you're signing invoices or paychecks or whatever like that, like, they're there to help you answer those questions. I've been doing, some research on, you know, like why we have the clerk and recorder sign off on checks. So, and I know Chris, I think you have been as well. Back in the day, the clerk and recorder's office was like the happening office because they did provide, and this is across the state. There were HR functions, there were finance functions, there was all of that. However, I think, we'll confirm, you know, it's not necessarily needed anymore. So there might be a way, if you want, you know, in time, thinking of the check signing process, right, of like changing who signs the checks. So, just throwing that out there.
And there's two people in the clerk's office who can perform that function.
Yep, the clerk and recorder and then the deputy, Cindy.
Gotcha.
Yep.
See what shakes out in there.
Yeah. There's opportunities.
Wow.
Lauren, can we
No
chat
question.
real quick about you, COG?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
and
afraid to say
then
that.
yes, and is it okay if I add to next week's agenda, the regular meeting, a discussion and review of the county manager job description?
Yes,
Okay.
please,
Thank you.
sure. Let's get it posted, cause probably need to sit here, he or she will need to sit here for as long, you know. You're gonna have to transfer your,
If we can
Your
do
brain.
it timely.
You can't take your brain with you.
Well,
You're
yes,
allowed
it's
to
just-
go, but we are going to physically transplant that
Yes.
into.
Which
Twitter
has,
will help.
yeah,
is there like a group that you belong to, that you guys belong to, like
Yeah, there's a,
county managers of Colorado?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it'll get posted there and they'll all look through it and go, oh, Leadville.
and I'll send it to the listserv, you know, and we'll do, I've already reached out to, you know, the surrounding managers, so once the job description's there, they can, you know, share with their teams if there's anybody who wants to move up to the big seat.
And have some internal applicants as well.
I hope so. Anyway,
Fun.
UConn.
you. Or it, I mean, we don't need to take these guys' time if you just wanna go chat.
Okay,
Up to you.
I think it's, I mean, all of their meetings are
They're all public as
all
well.
public because they're all commissioners.
Yeah, and we got Thursday, the sixth at 11 a.m. with those guys.
Yeah, and they'll be able to give you more information, but high level, so UCOG, they, long story short, they were putting all of their funding into one account. And that money was earmarked for specific programs. And they were spending money from other programs on, programs that they were not earmarked for. That's why we have funds, right? It's like
Right,
we're
yeah.
spending road and bridge funds on DHS.
Mhm.
And when they realized that and the programs that they were not spending money on or using the wrong funds for, wanted that funding back, they didn't have it in the bank.
Mhm.
So they are, I forget the amount, but close to $1 million in the hole of like.
So I'm gonna wanna emphasize that I am brand new to the board when I get in there, like, I wasn't here.
I did not sign up for that.
It wasn't me.
I heard it
Good
was a
job,
mess,
Andy,
so,
thank
you know, hey,
I love it.
So they have self-reported themselves to the AG's office for fraudulent use of public funds, because these are all public funds.
Right.
Federal dollars, state dollars that they were misspending. Two, they are over $100,000 in the red, so So they don't have enough money to cover the staff that they had, which is around 75 staff members.
They have 75 staff members
yeah.
and they made this mistake?
Oh yeah,
What?
that's why finance directors are really important.
Mistakes
Oh
is
my
strong,
lord.
or generous.
Are we on the hook for anything?
No, I
I think so.
don't, no, that's, I've
I
been
don't-
thinking that
an-
myself.
That answer's a little scary to me.
I will say like of the share that we have of membership fees, we are like one of the lowest because we're tiny compared to like Fremont and Chaffey counties.
Right,
A lot more higher in dues than we do. 3, they run a Head Start program in Fremont County that, depending on what happens in the federal side of things, may go underwater pretty quickly. The other thing is they have a employee suing them currently for wrongful termination that they might have to go to trial for. They are thinking of doing a settlement with that person of over $100,000.
HR is important.
That's why HR is important. They don't have the money to get the financial resources they need to clean up their books.
Yeah.
They haven't closed their audit since like 2021. Like
Wow.
they are, yeah.
Circling the drain. Like what
certainly.
happens? Does it get just banned and then can it go into bankruptcy?
yeah, I was gonna declare,
Rated by statute.
Yeah, we don't know.
No.
Unknown.
No.
There
Oh, wow.
is potentially a world where we ask to be part of a different cog.
Mhm.
The one, Park County, El Paso County is pretty high functioning. I've heard the one that's like Summit Eagle is not as high functioning, so, we might be better served actually moving to a different cog. We got not the most representation, a lot of the services are in Chaffey or Fremont counties. And we are kind of an afterthought because it's harder to get to us, et cetera. And we don't really get that much funding from them in reality. The senior center is probably the biggest amount and that's $10,000 or $20,000, which is, yeah. So,
alright, well, we can
yeah,
dive
that's high
deeper into
level
that.
where they're at.
Alright,
It's not a good
knowing
spot.
this ahead of that Thursday meeting next week, thank you.
I'm grateful to know that. Thanks for asking,
Yeah.
Andy.
These CCI meetings tomorrow and Friday, is there a vote on Friday or?
They're gonna talk about the legislative priorities, so you should have seen from CCI the agendas,
Mhm.
so I think really like those priority 1 bills, it will be voted on, and then that's where the discussion will be. So Lauren's gonna take, am I taking tomorrow morning?
So you're taking tomorrow morning, I'm taking right from 10 on,
Okay,
and then you're taking Friday,
okay,
other
yep,
than from 10 on.
But there's no vote that we have to be aware of.
And if the outcomes of those, when the steering committees do, there actually might be votes, Matt, on some of those pieces of legislation if CCI should support or oppose it, or what they wanna drive forward, right? So some of them are perennial, like coming from Pitkin County to reinstate or create the real estate transfer tax in Colorado. El Paso for the state paying more for courthouse funding, cause they have to build another wing to their justice center, which I think costs around $170 million.
Oh, is it all?
Yes, yes, so I think some of those, so it's really gonna be more of that discussion on it, and then any vote would be for that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would imagine I would just like abstain or just say that we're here and like listening.
Okay.
Cause tomorrow we'll be back at 9, we'll go over, you'll meet Elizabeth, who's our contract lobbyist, we'll go over like legislative affairs, legislative relations, and we'll go over housing. And then in the afternoon at 1, we will go over some of the special issues and projects that you guys have talked about, but also I know that there's awareness about, so the feasibility study for a new rec center, what that process has looked like, LCIS, kind of the why and the how of where the previous board landed on saying no to that. And then Ski Cooper, some of the known issues and things brought up by the previous board, but also by the community with Ski Cooper, and then high level of the animal shelter.
Also, just to put it on your guys' awareness, that cocktail hour is more than just that, but put on by the city. It's they're providing appetizers, not cocktails or anything like that, it's not
Right.
drinking centric, but it's for us.
Yeah.
So if not showing up to that could be a really bad optics in my mind, maybe I'm wrong, but
It's also the same night as like a community meeting though,
but
so
there's
maybe we
three of those community projects presentations that are all very similar.
yeah,
And there's one of these, and that's basically, it's for us to welcome our new county commissioners, embrace our shared spirit of working together.
yeah, you're right.
So at the very least, I'm gonna commit to that one, and then I will look at the other one community project presentations.
And it does
I
do,
would ask you guys to at least show up for the very beginning of it,
No, that's fair, Andy, good point.
if you think that.
I'll go, I just have no idea also how many of the council members are going. I think this came from Dana, like it's not on Cisco's calendar,
Huh,
so
okay.
I would love to know if like, are we actually all going, like, is this happening?
do you wanna hang out more with us?
I mean, I don't know,
I follow you guys around a lot as well.
Cut it out.
Yeah. And that would be a concern too, is if this is being somewhat structured by staff to have an opportunity to bend you all's ears on something outside of a public work session or something like that.
Yeah, I told Dana, I met with her for 2 hours before I was sworn in and told her I just didn't feel comfortable meeting in a situation where there's alcohol. And I told her I probably wouldn't come, and she just wouldn't take no for an answer, and I told her I'd think about it. And after thinking about it, I personally don't think it's appropriate to meet in a bar. I just don't. I told her coffee shop, great, but, and partly that's my own, if I have a couple drinks, I'm liable to say something I shouldn't. I'm really trying to protect myself, but also you could get in an argument, who knows who can handle their alcohol and who can't.
Mhm.
I just told her it was a bad idea, so I'll have to push back a little bit on you, cause I told her I was uncomfortable with that.
I respect that, I mean, that's, a valid
Mhm.
concern, a valid point, and
Andy, do you wanna just call Dana and see, like, have any of the
yeah, I will
council members
contact her right after this.
said they're going
and,
with, yeah,
give you guys a text, just purely informational about,
is this happening?
Why isn't
Yes.
it on Cisco's calendar?
I don't know,
That's weird, it might be just you and Dana.
they have, I know they have city council that night,
Is
so
that-
I don't know how.
After that, or
I'm assuming
Six?
so.
maybe we should talk about.
Oh no, maybe Cisco puts it on every Tuesday, city council, so maybe they don't have city council that way. But they tend to have like a lot of special meetings
Well,
that
I
happens
will-
everywhere.
Attend and keep my, thinking cap on about what's appropriate to discuss in that setting. And my goal is to further enhance the goodwill and working relationship between the county and the city. And I can represent both of you, or we can represent you, as just like, hey, we're here, we wanna mend fences, let's make great things happen.
I mean, I met with each one of them individually before getting sworn in, so I feel like it'd be great if we all did something. I get that what Dana's trying to do, but also like we have the opportunity to go before
That's what I
all the
said,
time.
Yeah.
said we should have a round robin coffee time,
That's a wonderful idea,
just
like
a
speed
round
dating,
robin, like, yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And that, you might get more out of that anyway, a one-on-one, build a little rapport with one of the people you may disagree with,
yeah.
little personal relationship, so I told her I was against it, and
Yeah,
she said, well, think about it and we'll see you there.
Do you, Do you,
Okay.
Commissioner, do you wanna reach out to the mayor, do you want me to, or,
I will,
okay,
Yeah.
just keep us in the loop and.
Yep.
And we'll see,
Love it.
see
cool.
what happens.
Alright, I think, we good, is that
Yes.
everything for today?
Thank you.
Alright,
Thank you.
look at all the people here,
I know.
thank you for
Me.
attending.
Should we look at the questions in the chat?
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah, I loaded it up.
Yeah. It is 3:20 PM, January 29th, Wednesday. We're going to close this work session of Lake County Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, awesome.
Everything.